community. Before I turn things off to our amazing speaker, I just want to talk a little bit about who we are and what we do. So who are we? Culture community. We are a group of people passionate about being great leaders, intentionally building great cultures and community. There are so many amazing people on this call. And so please take a chance to chat with them, connect with them outside this group. We love all the relationships that have been built from this space. And this is a space to learn, develop, and grow, to connect with one another, be inspired and activated to make a positive change in the world. So with that in mind, when and where we meet monthly online, and we love talking about topics to help us do everything that I just spoke about. So next month, we are actually going to be hearing from me a little bit more. The topic we're going to dive into is mastering powerful one-on-one meetings, crafting conversations that build connection and drive progress. We're all having one-on-one meetings anyway, so let's do it in an intentional way that really helps us build great relationships and make amazing progress in our workplaces. I'm going to jump over to Leah, who's going to talk a little bit about the perk.
Hey, everybody. How are we feeling today? Give me an emoji, thumbs up, smile, or cry. All feelings are valid. Oh, Dan has fireworks. Nice. Hello, everyone. This is my favorite day of the month. I love Culture Community Day, and I am the founder here at The Perk, and we are a premier leadership and culture development studio, and we love being able to put on this shindig and get together with you all every month. And so what we do here at The Perk, we are a premier leadership and culture development studio. And if we can go to the next slide. I don't know who's in control today.
It's me.
Like a guessing game. It's great. And while there's a lot of other companies out there who do what we do, who do leadership and culture development, and many might do them for the same reasons why, maybe they are also on a mission to build the world's best leaders. What makes us different, what makes us unique is our approach in how we do what we do. So in everything that we do, we make it fun. We make it enjoyable. We make it something that you and your team actually want to show up for and participate in. We make it human. We meet you where you're at. We don't use overly fancy jargon to try and make ourselves look or feel smart. We meet everyone where they're at. We see your people as whole holistic humans, not just employees of your organization. And we coach them on their true goals, dreams, challenges, celebrations, both inside and outside the workplace. We make it safe. We focus on psychological safety, emotional safety, and of course, physical safety. And we make it custom. A big piece of what we do here at The Perk is we take the time to get to know our clients, get to know who they are, who they want to be, what their culture is, what their unique goals and strategies are. And we customize all of our programming in order to help them hit their unique goals. And last but not least, we make it last. So we focus on equipping you and your team with mindsets, skills, leadership behaviors that aren't just going to be good for this week, but really help set you up for positive impact in the long run. And we do a lot of different things with our clients, but what we are most known for are our custom leadership development programs, our 6 to 12-month programs, our team workshops, our executive retreats, and then also our clear leadership training program. So if you are looking to just totally level up in terms of your confidence and effectiveness as a leader, the clear leadership training program is really the one to focus on. So with all of that good stuff, I'm going to turn it back over to Emily to intro the amazing Steph.
Amazing. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. And so Steph can gear up for that if she likes. But yes, I just want to take a minute to talk a little bit about our presenter today. Steph is an organizational culture and trust expert, and in all of her roles, she really loves using her diversity, equity, inclusion lens to be able to be the guide for our clients, for the people that she works alongside with, so they can show up and be the best versions of themselves and create the biggest possible impact in the world. After she joined the Perk, she experienced firsthand the importance of putting culture and people first and really figuring out what are they passionate about, what to align what they're doing their tasks with. So she is the perfect person to be talking about delegating today. She's all about embracing a growth mindset, which really fueled her to get trained in coactive as a coach and become a certified diversity practitioner. So many amazing things to help her be the wonderful leader and guide that she is today. And we are just so excited to learn from you, Steph. So I'll turn things over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. And I'm sure you're all wondering, are Emily and I supposed to be matching today because we're both wearing black and a jean jacket? We have been together for about 6 days in New Orleans, and so clearly now we just dress the same. We were attending a conference doing some professional development for ourselves. So it was Association for Talent Development here in New Orleans. And so we've had a great time, and it ended yesterday. So this is just like the best way for me to kick off or end our time here in New Orleans and really solidify all the amazing things that we learned together. So I'm going to try and bring some of the things that we learned from our conference into the conversation today. But no, it was not planned. We did not plan our outfits last night. This just happened for us today. So loving that. So let me just go ahead and grab the slides. All right. Can everybody see these okay?
Looks great.
Wonderful. Awesome. All right, so thank you all so much for being here. I'm sure delegation is your favorite leadership skill, so this is going to be so much fun. We're going to learn how to delegate with purpose. So I'm going to help you figure out how to empower your team with both clarity and confidence. If you have been to Culture Community before, we always love to start with ground rules and expectations anytime that anyone from the perk speaks. So some of these might be familiar to you. If not, for a lot of us that are here for our first time, I'll walk you through kind of what we expect from each other in our space here today. So we would love for you to be present, eliminate distractions as much as possible in the next hour that we have together. We love to have you give yourself this gift as a time, or this time as a gift to be able to learn, to grow, to connect with the other amazing people that are in this virtual space with us today. I would love for you to ask questions, engage, participate. We'll be using Annotate. You can use the chat. My team will be monitoring the chat for me. So if you have any questions, please feel free to throw those in there. You can use your raise hand function, or you can just cut me off and just ask the question. That doesn't bother me either. So whatever works best for you. There is no such thing as a stupid question. Delegation is really tricky. There's a lot that goes into it. So please ask any question that you might have. We ask that you're being open-minded today with the things that I'm sharing, with the things that everyone else might share today. And we love our friend Michelle Venturini. I don't know if she's on here today yet, but she taught us that everyone has something to learn and everyone has something to teach. Even though I'm here leading the discussion on delegation, by no means am I a delegation expert. So I am so excited to learn from you all today. And hopefully if I do my job right, you learn a little bit from me too. But please share anything that might be helpful for the whole group to be able to learn today. And then of course, last but not least, if you know anything about us here at the Perk, oh, maybe, we want to have some fun today. So throw the confetti, give your confetti reactions. This delegation does not have to be a soul-sucking skill that we have to learn, right? It's fun. I did not love delegation before, and you'll find out through the presentation today. I now say that I love delegation, and that's a huge shift that I got to make. So I'm excited for us to have some fun together today. So let's just start by defining delegation. I love just giving us all a starting point, a baseline. So when we're talking about delegation, I used this definition from Harvard Business School. Delegation refers to the transfer of responsibility for specific tasks from one person to another. So that's what we're talking about today when we're talking about delegation. And before we dive into more, I would love to just gauge the room. So we're going to use Annotate. I will walk you through how to get there in just a second. We're going to use some stamps. So these are kind of sentiments that I hear about delegation whenever we talk about this with clients. And there's three main themes. The first one is what. People sometimes feel, I'm not sure what tasks I'm supposed to be delegating. The second one is burnout. I'm going to overwhelm and burn out my team if I delegate things to them. They already have enough on their plate. I don't want to overwhelm them. And the third one is value. My value decreases if I delegate. And so I would just love to gauge the sentiments of the room. So using Annotate, in the bottom left-hand corner, there is a small green pencil. If you click on that, the Annotate toolbar will pop up. And if you agree, I want you to use the green check mark. If you're unsure or neutral, I want you to use the question mark. And if you disagree, go ahead and use the X. And people are already doing this, and I love it. You can change your stamp just by kind of like hitting the check mark, and it'll give you a little toolbar over there where you can go ahead and change that stamp. Awesome. Perfect. I love seeing all these pop in. So why are we doing this? I want you all to see that if you're feeling a certain way about delegation, you're not alone. There are people that maybe feel the same way as you do about what to delegate or burnout or the value that you might have with delegation. And what we talk about today, we're going to do this again at the end. And I hope that we're able to maybe shift some of these sentiments a little bit, so that you can feel a little bit better when it comes to delegation. But this is just helpful, I think, to kind of see where everyone is at when it comes to delegation. So thanks for doing this activity to start. If one of my teammates, thank you so much, can clear that, amazing. So let's dive a little bit more into why delegation is important. There are a bunch of reasons why delegation is important. These are the ones that kind of pop up the most for me. So you get skill development for your teammates when you delegate. This helps them learn, practice new skills, and take on new challenges. It's also going to empower your team, because when you delegate something off of your plate to them, that signals that you trust them. And when people feel that you trust them, it leads to more job satisfaction. It's also going to improve decision making, so others can have autonomy over their work and make decisions. If you remember, a couple months ago, we talked about entrepreneurship and owner's mindset. So when you delegate and you give your team the opportunity to make those decisions, you're giving them the opportunity to operate in that owner's mindset, which is so huge. And then lastly, for yourself, you can focus more on those high level activities that you love to do and that are in your zone of genius if you're able to delegate and get some things off of your plate. I would love to hear for the group. This is kind of what is sticking out for me as to why delegation is important. But does anybody want to come off mute and share why delegation is important to them?
Because your capacity is limited as one person.
Yes, absolutely, Sherry. That's so spot on. Your capacity is so limited, and we can only get so much done in the hours of the day that we have, right? Troy.
I always worry about burnout with delegation. However, it helps your team learn better time management skills as well in prioritizing.
Yeah, absolutely. Wendy.
Kind of piggybacking there on what Troy just said, it's a prioritization issue often more than anything else. And sometimes we do things that aren't priorities just so we look busy. So it's a really helpful key, especially when you might not have somebody to delegate to. It's a matter of delegating to the parking lot or something like that to just make sure that you're getting done what needs to get done.
Oh, I love that. Delegate it to the parking lot. Yeah, or even question, is this something that I need to be even doing? I love that. Thank you, Wendy. Jennifer?
I would say that it also allows me room to develop new skills for myself. If I can delegate to others, then other things can be delegated to me also. And so it creates a waterfall effect for development for everyone, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It allows you to have more space, and then you can take on those bigger activities, those bigger tasks. Ashley.
Yeah, very similar to what Jennifer shared. I think it provides an opportunity for others on your team to grow, especially if they're looking to advance, or maybe there's not a big opportunity for advancement internally, by helping coach and guide them into doing higher level work or delegating some of your work to them, especially if they're your direct reports. You're kind of providing that mentorship.
Absolutely. Stephanie?
Yeah, I think thoughts go along with that. It's empowering your team and making sure everybody gets a piece of the cool stuff or the good work or the opportunities. So it doesn't feel like, I'm hoarding all of the good things. It's making sure everybody has that equal opportunity, or really highlighting their skills and what they do well and pulling them into those pieces.
Yeah. Yes. That actually ties really well into one of the tips that I have a little bit later in our conversation. So that's so spot on. Thank you all so much for sharing. I love hearing why delegation is important to all of you. I'm so excited that we get to continue this conversation today and just give you some more skills so that you know why it's important, right? All of these things that we just listed, but sometimes there's some things that just stand in our way. So we'll get some more skills to help you to be able to delegate so that you can make sure that you're focusing on those high level tasks for yourself, or empowering your team, or putting those tasks in the parking lot, or whatever that might be. So thank you all so much for sharing. So I wanted to share a little bit about my personal journey with delegation. I shared at the beginning that this was not a skill that I loved by any means or was good at by any means. And so at the Perk, we have hard conversations. We have what's called core behaviors. It's how we bring our culture to life. And having hard conversations is part of our culture. It's part of our core behaviors. And so Leah, she is my leader. She knows where I want to go as a leader. She knows the impact that I want to have. She knows where I want to grow to. And so in a one-on-one that we were having, she gave me the feedback, and, we kind of had a hard conversation around the fact that if I want to get to the level that I want to as a leader and the level that she believes that I can get to too, I needed to be using the skill of delegation. I couldn't just be holding all of the things in for myself. And so we had that conversation, and we really made it a focus point for my development, and a goal for myself for this year was to focus on delegating. How can I do it better? How can I really make sure that I'm focusing on it as a leader? And so to be the leader that I wanted to be the leader that Leah knows that I can be for the Perk and for this company, for our team, for our clients, I really needed to first change my mindset. That was the thing that was kind of holding me back the most around delegation. And so I had a couple of thoughts. I probably honestly could have filled about 5 slides with the thoughts that held me back, but I didn't want to bore you with all of that. So here's a couple of thoughts that held me back. And I would love if you have thoughts that hold you back from delegation, please put them in the chat. Go ahead and type them in so others can kind of see what all these thoughts are too, but I'll just kind of walk you through a couple of mine. So some thoughts that held me back is I don't want my team to think that I'm not capable of doing this task. If I'm handing it off, what does that say about me that I'm not willing to do it or that I'm not capable of doing it? Will my leader, will Leah, think that I can't handle what's on my plate and that I'm not as capable as an employee, as a leader in this company? Sometimes I thought, I'm a leader. This is what we're supposed to do. We're just supposed to roll up our sleeves, get it all done. You have a mile-long to-do list, and that's just what a leader does. You just get it done. One that I thought a lot that held me back probably the most is it is so much quicker just for me just to do it. It takes so much time to explain the task, to make sure that they're trained, that they have all that they need. By the time I do that, I could have done 4 other things on my to-do list. So it's quicker for me just to do it. That one held me back a lot. And the last one, which was kind of hard for me to admit and to kind of bring into words, was my value will go down if I start giving tasks away, right? I tied a lot of my value of my effectiveness, of how good I was as a leader. My value was really tied to checking things off of a list or the tasks that I had. And so these were some of the thoughts that held me back, and I can't see everything in the chat, but I know that there are a couple that are coming in here that are holding us back. But I would love just a nod, a raise of hands. Has anyone felt any of these thoughts before when we're thinking about delegating? Yeah. Right? Great. Thank you for making me feel less alone. That makes me feel so much better. But we all have these thoughts, right? We all have thoughts that hold us back from a lot of things, but we're talking about delegation today. And so these were really the thoughts that held me back and really had me shift into a different mindset. So I knew these were the thoughts that I needed to change. And I read a book called Who Not How. It's a great book if you've never read it before. I kind of am summarizing it here with this who versus how mindset. But it's a great resource if you're wanting to do more around delegation. Who Not How is a great one there. But basically the summary of this book and of this concept is for you to start asking who instead of how. And so when you have a who mindset, you're really leveraging relationships, collaboration. It emphasizes on focusing to figure out who are the right people to do all of these tasks. to help you achieve your goals, to help them achieve their goals, rather than getting caught up in just holding on to everything and trying to do everything yourself. So this book, this mindset really helped shift things for me from all those thoughts that were holding me back to I need to start figuring out more who are my who's, who can do these things versus how am I going to, oh my goodness, I have this mile long list. How am I going to get all of this done? So this was a mindset that I really took to help shift from where I was before. And so I want to play a little game of who made this? So when we think of the Macintosh computer, who made the Macintosh computer? Who do you think of?
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs, right? And while this was maybe what his vision was a Macintosh computer, right? He had to delegate in order to bring the Macintosh computer to market. So he delegated to what's called the Skunk Works project. And so this was kind of like a task force of putting Steve Jobs' vision of the Macintosh computer. How do we actually get that to be what it is, what it was then and what it is today? So he had to delegate in order to bring the Macintosh computer to life. How about Disneyland? Who made that?
Leah and Dan.
Yes.
Walt Disney.
Walt Disney, thank you. Leah and Dan might have too. Yes, so Walt Disney, that's who we think of, right? When we think of Disneyland, he also had to delegate. So he delegated to the general manager at the time of Disneyland, who was C.V. Wood, in order to bring Disneyland to life. And so some of these really big leaders, innovators that we think of every day with these, with Disneyland and Apple, like these big companies, they had to find their who's, right? They didn't just say, I have this vision for Disneyland and I'm going to hunker down and figure out how to do this myself. They also had to embrace this who, not how mindset. And so just kind of a good, fun example to see that in action. And so to kind of summarize this, if you're wondering how to really use this mindset, if you are ever looking at a task or your to-do list and you're thinking, how will I get this done? That's kind of your trigger to, okay, I'm going to go into my who mindset now. And you're going to think, who is the best person to get this done? And a second question usually like, and is that me? Most times it's probably not. Most times it can be somebody else on your team that you can leverage to either help you with the task or just to get it off of your plate completely, right? So really being able to use this mindset is going to help a lot when it comes to delegation. And then I just wanted to share a couple of mindset shifts that help me delegate, of course, using who versus how. But I know that sometimes when we're stuck in those mindsets that hold us back, it can be nice to have examples of mindsets that can shift you into action, into wanting to delegate. So I just wanted to share a couple of those with you all here. So my first one is my team deserves the opportunity to take on this task so they can learn and develop. What I want as a leader, the impact that I want as a leader for my team is for them to be able to learn and grow and to get to where they want to go. And that can't happen if I'm not delegating. So that's kind of where the first one comes from. The company, the perk, needs me to be operating at a high level in order to do that. And I can't take everything on myself. The third one, again, probably my favorite, is my team will probably find an even better way to do this than I can. And they absolutely have. I would say every single time that I delegate something to one of my amazing team members, when they get it done, I see what it is that they did, or they bring me in to collaborate. I'm like, this is a million times better than I ever would have thought to do this task. And so it's so fun to watch them be able to be empowered, use their owner's mindset to be able to do the task in a way better way than I even would have. And then the last one, which again was a big shift for me from having so much value in the tasks that I complete, is delegation makes me a great leader, not completing all of these tasks. So that's probably the one that I repeat to myself the most, like a mantra, if you will, for a mindset shift that is really helpful for me to just focus on delegating. Oops. The last piece that I will share with you is mindset shifts. I love them and they're super helpful. And sometimes I need a little bit more. Sometimes just having the mindset shift isn't enough to hold me accountable to doing more with delegating or to taking the right action, because sometimes my mind will still kind of come back in and try and sabotage me a little bit. So I knew I needed more. Anybody in here a competitive person? I can't see everybody, but I'm hoping that some people are nodding and raising their hands. So I am a competitive person. Competition fuels me. It's something that motivates me. And so I knew that I needed to gamify this a little bit so that it would be something that I would have fun with and enjoy and really be able to do. So I gamified delegation by tracking how many tasks I delegated each day. And so this was just as simple as having a notebook with, you know, the days of the week on it. And I would just mark down every time I delegated a task. And I wasn't competing with anybody except for myself. And that still motivates me, right? So my goal was just to beat my last day's number. So if on Monday I delegated 5 tasks, my goal for Tuesday, I wanted to hit 6 or more. And so this is really what made it more fun for me. This is what made delegation more fun, was to make it a game, make it more competitive, and it made it a habit. I also had an accountability buddy. I shared my scorecards with Leah in our one-on-ones that we had, our weekly one-on-ones, just to keep me accountable, to make sure not every day did I beat myself, but just to make sure that I was, you know, getting a little bit better, delegating more tasks. And I told you, I said that I would love delegation. Here's where it is. Now that I love delegation, I don't need this anymore. I did this for maybe 3 or 4 weeks. It became a habit. And now I don't need to necessarily track every time that I'm delegating. But this was just what really solidified it for me and made it more of that habit and something now that I just do instinctually when something comes across my desk or a task that pops up for one of our clients. Now I'm just automatically kind of thinking that who, not how, and can I delegate this to one of my teammates? So before we dive into a little bit of an activity, I wanted to check in. Any questions, any thoughts about delegation, mindset shifts, creating it as a habit? Any thoughts or questions from the group?
Hey, Steph. I
Hi.
just had one thought. When you talked about seeing your team do it better, right?
Yeah.
The things that you delegate, I've seen that too. And it's also really helped me to focus in on where my skills are and aren't, right? Like when something comes across my desk, I can more quickly recognize, like, this doesn't fit into my wheelhouse of skill sets. I'm not really good at highly detailed processes or SOPs. That's just not where my skill set is. And that helps me more quickly recognize this is something that needs to be delegated. And then who on my team is really good at this type of task.
Yeah. Yes, I love that. Thank you for sharing, Christy. I think that's so spot on, of like, when you're just doing all of the things because you feel like you need to do them, you're not necessarily thinking like, am I the best at this task, right? And so I love that, that you've seen that impact by giving that to your team, that it's given you some clarity, maybe a little bit as well. I love that. Thank you. Corinne?
Hi, Steph. So I was at an HR virtual summit yesterday, and James Clear was one of the keynote speakers, and he wrote Atomic Habits. I've read that book. It's fabulous. But one of the things I was thinking, if maybe the competition thing wouldn't work for me, but turning delegation into a habit. At the beginning of each of my days, I kind of record my projects for the day and start prioritizing. And so building in delegation into that, like task for myself, saying like, okay, I need to get this project done today, but do I need to get it done, or does somebody else need to get it done? Sort of like building it a habit in that way might work for me or others. So I thought I'd share.
And no, thank you for sharing that, because yes, I know that competition isn't something that fuels everybody. And so I love that, of kind of baking it into the processes that you're already doing when you're looking at that to-do list or when you're prioritizing, is just kind of adding that extra layer of that who, not how, or that delegation. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. All right. Who's ready to dive into more? So you're probably like, okay, great. I know what delegation is. I know why it's important. I know how to shift my mindset now into that who, not how. And so now I can just delegate and it magically gets done, right? No, definitely not. We still have what? at least 40 minutes together. So we are going to talk about what to delegate. I'm going to help you figure out so you know a little bit more about what to delegate. When we did those stamps, I know that was something that some folks were struggling with, was that they didn't know what it was that they should be delegating. So we'll dive into that. And then once you know what it is that you want to delegate, we need to equip our teams and set them up for success. How can we empower them? How can we make sure that the tasks that are being delegated to them, that they can crush them and that they can go ahead and grow with those tasks? So I'll have a couple of tips for that too. So let's go ahead and start a little bit with our what. We love utilizing a tool called purpose quadrants at the PERC. We use this in our one-on-one coaching, in our leadership coaching programs that we have. And so this tool we did not create. It comes from Amy Jen Sue's book, The Leader You Want to Be. This is another great resource. If you haven't read this book, I highly recommend it. She walks you through 5 essential principles for bringing out your best self every day. And so this tool, we absolutely love that she walks us through in that book. And so as leaders, we're often wondering when we're talking about prioritization, right? Where should we be spending our time? We have this to-do list. Where is it that we should be spending our time? And so what in the book, what she talks about is really focusing on your high contribution and your high passion tasks. So when I'm talking about contribution, these are your highest and best use. These are the things that you do that provide the most value to your team and to the organization, to your clients. And then your high passion. So these are the things that inspire or excite you the most. These are the things that are really giving you energy. You see them on your to-do list, you see them on your calendar, and you are so looking forward to doing those tasks. So that's what I'm talking about when we're talking about high passion tasks. There we go. And so to do this activity, we're going to walk you through it right now. So at the end of this activity, you should have clarity as to it is what that you're going to be delegating. So we will do it here together. So I want you to get out a piece of paper, or if you have, want to just use like Microsoft Word or your phone, we're going to reflect on a couple of questions and just make 2 lists. So go ahead and get a piece of paper, your phone. We're going to make 2 lists for contribution and passion. So if you're using paper, the best way to do this that I've found is just kind of split it right down the middle, write contribution on one side and passion on the other. So once you have that ready, I want you to think about your role, your company, what it is that gives you your highest and your best use for the work that you're doing. And so I have a couple of reflection questions here. By no means do you have to answer every single one. This is just to kind of get your juices flowing, to think about what's my highest and best use. What is my highest contribution for the company, our clients, my team? You can think, what would my boss say is my highest and best use? Or what would my direct reports say, my team, my peers? Or what would my clients or my vendors say is my highest and best use? So really what you're thinking about here, you're just kind of jotting down. Bullet points is great. However much comes up for you for your highest and best use for your contribution. And I'll just give you a little bit of time here to think and to put these down on your contribution list. So we'll do about 30 more seconds or so. Yes, Leah, I love what you just put in the chat. So if you're feeling stuck on this, you can do this activity afterwards too. It's not like a one and done activity. So if you're feeling stuck here and you're not sure what your highest and best use is, you can ask your direct reports, your team, your peers, what is my highest and best use here at our company? Where should I be really spending my time? So if you're feeling a little stuck on this, this is absolutely something that you can take back afterwards and still be able to fill this list out. All right, so next we have our passion list. So if you've split your list down the middle, maybe you have contributions on the left, we're going to move to our passion list. And so again, I want you to think about you at your company and your role, the impact that you want to be having there. We want to be thinking of our high passion items. So this is, what do I love to do? Where do I want to spend time and invest emotional energy while I'm at work? What is it that I want to be learning? What really stokes my fire now? Another way to think about this is what gives me energy? What gives me motivation and inspiration? Again, when I explained this before, it was like you see it on your to-do list, you see it on your calendar, and you are so jazzed and you cannot wait to be in that meeting or doing that task. So these are your high passion tasks. And if things are falling into both, you can repeat. So if there's something in your contribution tasks that falls in this passion list, you can write it both in both areas. That's totally fine. Alrighty. So we now have our contributions and our passions. And so what we're going to do, and again, I know that we're moving kind of quickly through this just for the sake of time. So if you want to take this and do it a little bit deeper later, I definitely suggest doing that. But just to kind of get us to where we want to go here today, I want you to take a look at the two lists that you've created. So your contribution and your passion list. If anything shows up in both, on both sides or in both buckets, I want you just to put a star next to it. So put a star next to anything that shows up in both of those lists for yourself. So once you have those starred, the next step, it's called purpose quadrants, right? So we need to draw out some quadrants here. So get another piece of paper. You're going to just draw like, down the middle 2 ways. You're going to have 4 different boxes here, kind of like what I have on my screen. And so your first quadrant, your first box is what we call the prioritize box. That's top right. Then you have tolerate, which is bottom right. Our third box is going to be elevate, that is top left. And then our fourth is delegate, which is bottom left. And so once you kind of have your 4 quadrants drawn out, you're going to put the starred items, so those items that were on both your contribution and your passion list, you're going to put that into your quadrant 1, your top right quadrant, which is your prioritize quadrant. So the items that fell into both your contribution and your passion list, you're putting there. And don't freak out if you don't have anything that's going into this quadrant. Whenever we do this, people are like, I don't have anything that's in this one. It's okay. We'll walk you through it. It's okay if you don't have anything that's in this quadrant. All right, so we have our first quadrant, which is prioritize, which is our starred items, the items that are in both the contribution and our passion list. So this quadrant is called prioritize, so pretty self-explanatory here. This is the sweet spot of your job. We want you to prioritize these tasks. These are the items that reflect your highest value for your contributions and your highest passions. So I think of this as like, this is your win-win spot, right? Because these are the parts of your job that bring you energy, joy, impact, and where you feel that true sense of purpose. And so as we're delegating, we're freeing up hopefully our time so that you can prioritize the tasks that are in this quadrant. And like I said, if you don't have things that are in this quadrant, it might just be because you're so bogged down with all the things that are on your to-do list. Maybe you haven't delegated items. And so our goal then is to help you move items into this prioritize quadrant. Troy.
Steph, does your priorities change based on your personality, based on, so let's say you're an extrovert versus an introvert? You had said where you draw your energy from, and that's really extroversion and introversion. Extrovert draws their energy by being with others. Introverts draws energy by being alone or in small groups. I know I'm really throwing this at you, but does that change your priorities and your tolerance levels and et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And I think it definitely does, right? Because like everyone's energy or everyone's priorities, they're not going to look the same across the board. Even if you have the same role as somebody else in your company, you're wired so differently just as a human, and the things that motivate you and your why and what really brings you that passion. So yes, the things that are going to bring you energy are probably going to be very different from the person next to you, even if you have the same role. And that's totally totally okay. And it's also really, again, why we do this exercise, so that it's not just what's written on your job description, but what are the things that bring you that energy and bring you that. So yes, absolutely, it's going to change based on who you are, for sure. All right, so we have our prioritized quadrant. So now we want to look at our non-starred items from our contribution list. So look at your contribution list, anything that you didn't have starred. We want to put those into our quadrant 2, which is tolerate. So this is our bottom right quadrant. So you're going to put those into your tolerate quadrant, anything that's not starred on your contribution list. And these are the parts of our role that we know are important because they're high contribution, but they don't exactly inspire or thrill us because they're that low passion. So maybe they used to inspire us, but now maybe you've become bored or you've outgrown them. These things are important. You know that there's value there, but likely drain your energy. And so what we want to do with these is these are tasks that possibly could be delegated. Also, in our roles and in our jobs, we're not always going to live in that quadrant 1 where everything is going to be a high passion and a high contribution. So sometimes you just have to tolerate these tasks as needed, right? We all have tasks that we can't really give to someone else that have to get done. But the idea is that you're just thinking a little bit more of that who, not how. Does it need to be me to do these tasks? And if so, hopefully you're able to really focus on that prioritized space more and minimize your tolerate quadrant. You can also really focus on building a team around you who wants to do these tasks where that is their quadrant 1. So really just being able to have, again, more awareness around where you're getting your energy from. So you can maybe tolerate a couple of these tasks, but could you clear these off of your plate as well? So our next one is going to be quadrant 3. This is our elevate quadrant. This is the top left. That's where you're going to put the items that are on your passion list that were not starred. So anything that's left on your passion list that didn't go into the quadrant 1, that's what you're going to put here in quadrant 3. So this quadrant is called elevate. These are the parts of your role that you really love, but other people don't see them as your highest contribution, or maybe you don't see them as your highest contribution. Your passion is there, but the value is unclear. So even though others may not see these things as the best use of your time, or maybe you don't see these as the best use of your time, you still do them because they light you up. And so why it's called elevate is because we want you to elevate the value of your idea, the task, the activity, what it is that you're spending time on, because the impact may not yet be apparent to others or to yourself. So with this, it's communicating your why. It's figuring out, why is this a task that brings me so much energy that I love to do? And how can I align it to the bigger picture? How can I align it to the mission, the vision, the values of our company, to the impact that it might have on our clients, on my team? And so if you have these items that are such high passion for you, how can you really tie them into that bigger picture and elevate those tasks so that maybe they move into your quadrant 1? So that's another way that you can get more items into that first quadrant, is by understanding, how do these really contribute to the success of my team, my company? And so our last quadrant, and you're probably thinking, I don't have anything else on these lists, so what's supposed to go into this box? That's on purpose. These are all of the other tasks that you're doing, that are in your day-to-day, that are in your current role, that aren't on any of your lists. That's what goes in this quadrant. So things that are not on your contribution list, things that are not on your passion list, this is what's going to go in quadrant 4, which is your delegate quadrant. So again, things might be popping up right now. You can add things to this quadrant when we're done here too. But in this delegate quadrant, these are the tasks that are low value and they don't fuel you. They're not giving you energy, which is a pathway to burnout. Maybe you feel a temporary sense of relief. If you're like me, you love crossing things off of a list. So maybe you're still getting these things done, but it just drains your energy because you know that this is not where your time is best spent. This is not where you're getting that energy. And so this is really where you can start thinking, are these tasks that need to be done at all? Do they go into that parking lot? I love that. Are these the tasks that we need to be doing? Or are there people on our team that we could delegate these tasks to? Because our best case scenario is that your Q4, your delegate quadrant, is someone else's Q1. And you don't know that until you give them the opportunity to try it, right? So if there's something that you absolutely just, it's like soul sucking to do this task every day, of course, you're not going to be like, yeah, I'm going to give this to my teammate. Like maybe this won't be as bad for them, but it honestly might not be. They might love it. They might absolutely just get so much energy from doing that task. So giving them the opportunity to have this be something that they can do, you can figure out if that's maybe their Q1. Wendy.
First of all, I'm totally digging this exercise. Like,
Yay.
oh, I'm here for it. This is great. One thing that comes up often in this space for me is, you know how sometimes we're good at something, but we kind of hate doing it, but people love to delegate it to us because we're good at it. And so I think this can, even if it just ends up being a conversation tool, but to be able to say, hey, that task that I know I might be good at, I don't enjoy doing it. It doesn't fall into any of these quadrants for me. Like I don't even want it in my realm. So I think there's like this whole element of being able to identify this just to give us the voice to be able to say, I know I contribute that, but I really don't like it. And I don't even want it in my space at all. How can we get it out of there? So this is great. Thank you.
Good. Oh, thank you so much for that feedback. Yeah, that's absolutely like, this is to, yes, create awareness for yourself and to give yourself a tool to use with your team, or you can bring this to your leader and say, hey, I just did this, like, and I just found out that these tasks that I have on my plate, maybe I'm not the best person for those, right? So yeah, it kind of opens that conversation. So I love that. And so, you know, as we're thinking, what should I be delegating? Your bottom kind of space, those bottom two quadrants, tolerate and delegate. So this is where you can kind of quickly go to when you're thinking, okay, I need to get things off of my plate. Go to those two quadrants and see if there's things there that you could delegate to a teammate. All right, so that is how we know what to delegate. I'm going to dive into 3 tips for us for how. Is there anything, did anybody put anything in the chat? Any questions that you have before we move on to our how portion? Great. Let's get into our top-notch tips, friends. So we have 3 top-notch tips for delegation. And so I'll walk you through these. They are all actionable. They are simple. They are short tips that will really help you to be able to delegate and empower your team. And so I wanted to come up with like some catchy, like some catchphrases to go along with these. I didn't come up with them, ChatGPT came up with them, but just so that you can kind of be able to remember these a little bit more. So the first one is play to strengths. So you're going to spotlight your strengths and sync to goals. Your second one is set expectations. So we want to aim high and be clear. The third one is a feedback loop. So feedback is your friend. So let's go ahead and dive into each of these, starting with play to strengths. So it is so much easier to delegate when you know what your team's strengths and goals are. So the best way to discover this, if you're unsure or if you want to learn more, is to figure out where it is that they want to grow to. You can do that with the skill of curiosity. We love this skill at the Perk, and it can wear so many different hats when we're talking about curiosity. So when you're curious, you ask questions. However, I'm sure that we've all been on the receiving end of questions that maybe aren't super powerful. So we like to say not all questions are created equal. So when we are being curious as leaders, and especially when we're trying to be curious with our teams, we want to focus on asking powerful questions that are both open-ended and expansive. So our pro tip here for that is you focus on asking what questions. So when you're formulating the question, it's going to start with the word what. And what questions are automatically open-ended. They invite exploration. It's not a yes or a no question when we're using what at the beginning of our question. They're also non-judgmental, so there's no agenda. We're not trying to lead them down a specific path. And it genuinely helps you understand that other person's perspective, their ideas, where is it that they want to grow to? What are the goals that they have? If you're not using open-ended, non-judgmental questions, you're probably not going to find that out because maybe you're leading them down a path that they're not really interested in. So using these what questions can just be so helpful. So I put together a couple of questions that you could ask to help uncover strengths for your team. And so if you want to take a screenshot of this, or I'm sure that will give the slides to you too, but these are just some questions, and you'll see they all start with what, right? They're all powerful questions that are going to help you uncover the strengths and the goals of your team. So I'll just highlight a couple that I really enjoy here. So what skills and experience do you currently have that we are not utilizing? Sometimes, again, you're in a role and you have a job description and you're doing those things as a teammate, as an employee, but you have so many more skills, so many more life skills, so many different experiences that you could be bringing to the plate, but maybe you just don't know how to use them in your role or at your company. So if you as a leader, if you're asking these questions, it's inviting them to think about that, or maybe you can collaborate on how you can use those skills together. Another one of my favorites is, what is a task that I do that you would love to take over? Right? Maybe there's something that you're not even thinking that they want to do it or that they could do it, but they're like, I see you do that task every week and I can absolutely do that. I would love the opportunity to try and do that. So that's a really fun question to ask. And then the last one that I'll highlight is, what's something that would push you outside of your comfort zone and help you grow? And so maybe that's something that you help train them to. Maybe you're not necessarily just handing them that task then right away, but that gives you that insight to where do they want to grow to? What are kind of the stepping stones and the tasks that I could give them to help them get there? So these are just questions, again, asking these in one-on-ones is really helpful just for you to uncover the strengths that your team has. And so something, again, like I said, we were at this conference this week. Daniel Pink was one of our speakers, and what Emily and I loved about his conversation was that he always ended with a way for us to take action. He really moved us to action. So with each of these tips, I will have a move to action at the end. So what you can do here, ask your employee, or if you don't have direct reports, even just a teammate, because we delegate to teammates all the time, right? So ask your teammate 3 of these questions to learn more about their strengths within the next week and just see what you're able to learn. And of course, I have a bonus tip for this one too, because I think this one is just so important. It's so important too to find out your team's zone of genius. And so we did Zone of Genius at Culture Community, I think maybe last year or the year before. If you weren't at that, you'll have an opportunity to get a video and a worksheet walking you through this at the end of our session today. And so this is just another great tool, kind of like what we just did with purpose quadrants. You can do that with your team too. But this Zone of Genius is a great tool to do with your team, just to understand where is their zone of genius, where did they really want to be operating in. That can really help you with their finding their strengths as well. All right, let's move on to set expectations. We want to aim high and we want to be clear. So with expectations, this is always the one that people are like, ooh, I don't know, like people don't love expectations. I don't know as a leader if I should be giving them, right? But the greatest gift that you can give someone is your expectations, because your team, people, they want them. They want them as long as they are clear, reasonable, consistent, and fair. So as a leader, it's part of your job to set and to hold them. So again, that's why we're aiming high and we want to be clear when it comes to expectations. Because expectations exist no matter what. So they are either stealth expectations or you can have clear expectations. When I'm talking about stealth expectations, this is going to be when you expect the other person to read your mind. You haven't clearly defined what the expectation is. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about a stealth expectation. And this leads to big breakdowns and barriers to progress on teams, because leaders want something from their people, but they aren't getting it, yet they haven't communicated their expectations. So an example here, maybe you delegate a task that you need done ASAP, like you need it yesterday, right? But you never gave that person a timeline for completion. So that's a stealth expectation. You know that it's super important and something that you need done, but you didn't give them a timeline. So now that's a stealth expectation. It's not clear. Has anyone been on the receiving end or given stealth expectations before? I see some head nods, right? Yeah. Not fun, right? Not fun to be in this situation of having stealth expectations, or honestly to be the leader where you're like, ooh, shoot, I did not set those clear expectations, right? I didn't set that person up for success. And when we have these stealth expectations, this is where the feeling of disappointment comes in, because disappointment is the result of unmet expectations. So if you feel disappointed with your team, with a teammate, instead of just shifting that blame automatically to the other person, I invite you to explore why your expectations weren't met. So maybe just reflect on a couple questions. Were these expectations stealth? Were they unclearly communicated? Or were they maybe not understood by the other person? I think sometimes we're so quick to go to blaming that other individual. But if you can just take a second and think, like, what did I do with these expectations? Did I clearly communicate them? That can sometimes bring you clarity around what needs to be done next. Do you need to reset expectations? But when you feel that feeling of disappointment, I just invite you to reflect a little bit more next time that you have those. And we want to give the gift of high expectations when we delegate, because high expectations are a sign that you trust and believe in the capabilities of that person. And so when you hold that high and of course reasonable bar for them, it's demonstrating that you believe in them. And we still need to support them with grace. We need to make sure that we have those clear expectations, that we're there to help them if they need it. But really giving the gift of high expectations to your team, that is one of the best things that you can do as a leader, because then they can shoot for those high expectations or even blow those expectations out of the water. So really holding those high expectations when we're delegating is going to just really empower your team and give them the confidence that they need to get that task done. So how do we do this? How do we aim high and be clear? We want to make it a conversation, because delegation is not a one-way street. It's not just here's the task, go do it. We need to ask questions. We need to have a conversation with the person that we're delegating to ensure clarity, to ensure that we don't have those stealth expectations. And clarity is co-owned. So communication is complete when the other person has understood you and their behaviors are in alignment with the desired result. So communication for delegation isn't complete when you just say, hey, I need you to go do that report, right? That's not a complete communication cycle. There's no clarity in that. There's no expectations in that. And so we love using this quote from George Bernard Shaw: the single biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it's taken place, right? So you're like, well, I delegated it. They should know I communicated what I needed done. But we need to have that clarity be co-owned. We need to have a conversation and ask a couple of questions before we just, part ways and have them go work on that task or that report. So we love using the trifecta questions here at the Perk. So if you're the individual who is setting expectations, who is delegating a task, we love asking these questions to the person that you gave that task to. And you ask, what is one thing you're excited about? What is one thing you're nervous or hesitant about? And what is one question you have? And so you can ask them that in the moment. You can have them reflect on that and bring it back to you. But when you ask these questions, you are automatically going to get that two-way street, because you're going to have a conversation and you're going to ensure more clarity. Maybe they have a question about something that you can make more clear with your expectations. Maybe something that they're nervous or hesitant about is something that you can train them up on. So it's just, again, inviting that conversation using these 3 simple questions to make sure that the expectations are clear. And then, of course, we want to get curious to learn what they expect from you too. So when we're the one delegating and defining those expectations, it's important to make it a collaborative process, make it that two-way street. It creates greater buy-in, we strengthen trust, and it's a really inclusive way to set expectations and not just assume that you've communicated clearly or that they know what they're supposed to be doing. So how do you do that? With some more questions, of course. So there's some questions that you can use to uncover what they expect from you. So maybe there's other expectations that they would like to set from their perspective. So you could ask, to be successful, what other expectations should we set from your perspective? Or what will you need from me to achieve success? Maybe there's a check-in that they want halfway through, or maybe they want a refresher on the software that they need to use for it. And just open-ended, what do you expect from me, or what do you need from me? Really are some great questions to ask to make sure that it's a two-way street. You're having a conversation about the task that is being delegated and the expectations that you have with that. So our move to action here is the next time that you delegate a task, I would love for you to ask the trifecta question, so those 3 questions, and just 1 question to uncover what they expect from you, which could just be what will you need from me, right? So I would just love for you to ask these 4 questions the next time that you delegate to make sure that you are setting those clear expectations and making it a conversation when you delegate. Before I move us to our 3rd tip, does anyone have questions or thoughts on the first 2? Play to strengths and set expectations. All right, great. Let's round it out with number 3, which is our feedback loop. This one, the catchy phrase is feedback is your friend, right? So when we are giving clear expectations, we want to create a feedback loop once we've delegated that task. One of the worst things that you can do is just delegate it and be able to set those expectations and then just let them go. You need to have that feedback loop so they know, am I on the right path? Am I doing this right? Is there something I could be doing better? So the feedback loop can be so helpful, especially if you're like fully handing over a task to somebody that you're totally taking off of your plate, right? And so feedback can and should be both constructive and positive. So giving them recognition, but also giving them maybe tweaks that could make it even better. And we, of course, have a feedback model that works for both. So it's not too much that you have to learn to be able to give that constructive feedback and the positive feedback or the recognition. So let's go ahead and dive into our feedback model. We use the FBI model of feedback. Has anybody here heard this one or used this model before? I see a couple of people nodding their heads. Yeah, perfect. And so if you haven't, it's a really simple model to use and to learn. And we love this model because it helps you give feedback that is specific, non-judgmental, and really focused on the behavior and the impact of that behavior. And so what each of these letters stands for, it's FBI, but you do it in the letters of BFI. So I'll walk you through that. So the first one is behaviors. You want to describe the specific behavior that caused your feeling. The feelings, you express how the person's behavior made you feel. And then the impact. Explain how the behavior affected you or the situation. Or another way I like to think about this is if their behavior continues, what would the long-term impact be, right? So really wanting to focus in on the behaviors here. And so one other thing I'll say about before I dive into an example, why I love using this one is because sometimes people are hesitant to give constructive feedback because they're worried that people are going to be really defensive or take it super personally. And when you focus on the behavior, it kind of takes that portion out of it because you're focusing on an action, something that you can give that feedback on is the behavior so that then they can tweak that and you're having a conversation around that. So that's why we love this model is because it's honed in on the behavior and the impact of the behavior. So being able to really focus on that is helpful when it comes to delivering sometimes that harder or that constructive feedback.
Hey, Steph,
Yeah.
this carries over in as a parent also, just so you know. So like, if you get frustrated with your kid and you can say, oh my gosh, you are so frustrating. Change it to the behavior. Oh my gosh, what you did or the behavior you did is so frustrating because once you do this to an employee, a team member, or a kid, they shut down immediately because they think you're attacking them and not the behavior.
Yes, thank you, Troy. At first, I thought you said this carries over and is super apparent, and I was like, oh, great. But you're as a parent, I get it. But yes, absolutely, I love it. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a little example. So for our circumstance, this is going to be us delivering maybe some harder feedback or some constructive feedback. So during your team meeting last week, you assigned your team member the task of preparing the monthly sales report. So that's just the circumstance that we're talking about here. So behaviors, you could say, I noticed that the report was submitted 2 days late and was missing the data analysis section we had discussed. So again, really focused on the behavior of it being late and missing a section that you had already discussed. Then you go into your feelings. When you prepare and complete sales reports, it makes me feel like I haven't done a good job explaining my expectations for this task, or I think that you don't have enough information or resources to complete the job to do this task. And lastly, the impact. So this delay caused us to miss the deadline for our executive summary, and the incomplete report impacted our ability to make informed decisions for the upcoming sales strategy. And so my bonus here, my bonus tip is not just to give this feedback and then like walk away, right? We want to make it a conversation. So give the feedback. And then just like we did with the expectations, we make it a conversation by asking a question. We want to reset expectations here. So maybe your question is, what roadblocks did you encounter with the sales report? We don't want to assume that they just didn't want to do it right or that they wanted to turn it in late. So we want to make it a conversation by asking this open-ended question. Again, maybe they needed more training. Maybe they didn't understand that it needed to be turned in at a certain time. So we are not just assuming here, we're being curious, making it a conversation. So after you give the feedback, ask a question, be able to have that conversation for how to reset those expectations moving forward. And then you can do this with recognition, with positive feedback too. So you can use this exact same model. So exact same circumstance. Let's say that they did something so amazing that we want to give them positive feedback for. So maybe you say, not only did you get this report to me to review on time and included the needed sections, you made the data analysis section even better by using AI to innovate, and it really leveled up that report. So it makes me feel that you truly understand the big picture of the impact of our sales efforts on the mission, the vision of our company. Ultimately, this makes our team and company even better. We'll be able to make quicker and more impactful decisions for the upcoming sales strategy, right? So this model works both ways. It's all about the behaviors that they're doing, how it made you feel, and the impact. And we're trying to, with recognition, with the positive feedback, reinforce the behaviors. We really liked that you innovated and you took this to the next level. Keep doing that. If we wouldn't give them this feedback, they wouldn't know that that's something that we enjoy. So we're trying to create that feedback loop here with giving the positive feedback as well. So my move to action is the next time that you delegate, create a task. I have 1 week later, whatever makes sense for the task that you're doing, to give feedback on your delegated task using either the FBI model of feedback or recognition. So creating a task, creating a calendar reminder, whatever that might be, to make sure that you're giving this feedback and that it becomes a habit. So just making sure, again, that we're not just delegating, setting expectations and assuming that they've got it taken care of. We want to be giving them that feedback. So creating that task for you to do that. All right. We made it through our 3 top-notch tips for delegation. You have what you're delegating. Now you know how to delegate in the best way. So congratulations, team. We made it. You are now delegation masters. And I know that we are just right about at time, but I would love to check in just one more time. I want to see if anything has shifted for you all when it comes to what to burnout or to value. So again, your bottom left-hand corner, your little green pencil there, you're going to annotate with your stamp if you agree, are unsure, or disagree with the statement. So again, it's I'm not sure what task to delegate. I will overwhelm my team if I delegate, or my value decreases if I delegate. We shifted. Look at that in just an hour. I wasn't sure. This is something that we learned at the conference too. Like this is a fun little activity that we learned. And so I was like, can we shift in an hour? And you guys proved me that we can. We can shift these things even in just an hour or 45 minutes. I love it. Thank you. Perfect. All right. So, I would not be a good speaker, a good coach, if I didn't make you write down one thing that you are going to take from today. I hope that you've had a lot of things that you're taking from today, but if you just want to make sure that you write that down, feel free to share it in the chat. The one thing that you're going to put into action in the next 30 days when it comes to delegation, one thing that you took from today, maybe something you learned from someone else in the chat too. But that's how we love to make sure that we're locking in our learning. We have something to go ahead and take back once we go into our busy days after Culture Community today. And then I promised you that you could get more on Zone of Genius. And so here is that. So again, reminder, Zone of Genius is how you can help figure out your team's strengths. You can use it for yourself too. It's a great self-awareness tool to understand your strengths when you're delegating. So if you want more on Zone of Genius, you can go to the website that we have there. I'm sure my team will put it in the chat. We will include it in our follow-up email that we have too, that with the recording of this. So you can go ahead and we'll give you a worksheet and a video that walks you through this exercise. And please do it with your team. It's not just for you. Share it with whoever you want to learn more about their strengths. And then if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, you can find me there, Steph Yano. I know I'm connected with a lot of you already, but if you're not connected with me, I would love to. And just like that, I am 30 seconds in and I've got 30 seconds left. So we did it, team. We made it all the way through. If you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or email me. I know I didn't leave a lot of time for questions here at the end, but that's what I have for you.
Great job, Steph. It was awesome.
Thank you.
Hey, Steph, it seems like a lot of people really loved the purpose quadrants. And
Yeah.
I know there's also a worksheet for those on the Parks website, if anybody wants to drop that link into the chat as well. I have
Yeah.
it saved to my personal computer already. I use it with my staff on one-on-one sometimes.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Several people noted in the chat that they really liked it. So that might be a good resource as well.
Thank you, Christy. Yeah, we can definitely put it in the chat and I'll have my team included in the email that we send out afterwards as well. So you can have that resource too.
It's a great one.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leah.
All right. That's what I have. Join us next time for Miss Emily. She's going to be the one who's going to lead us through how to have amazing one-on-one conversations with our team. We'll be sure to wear the jean jackets again, so we'll match. So you can look forward to that next month too. Emily, anything else that we want to say to the crew before we head out?
I don't think so. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning. Keep your eyes open for a follow-up email from us with the recording and all the amazing resources that Steph mentioned today. But we hope you have a great Thursday and we'll see you next month. Thanks, everyone.